live stream where I literally just like put every single device in my house on the stream. I'm like, sorry, Ramir, you go.
You guys are here for, what your role is in all this.
Yep.
And also, Ramir, are you gonna like talk? Cause like you're Filipino, so
Yeah, you better join us. Yeah, you should be.
Just like feel free to like speak out and just connect it how it affects your mental health.
Yep, we're showing the Zoom call. Say hi to the audience, guys. Past, future, and present. Do you guys have any like last minutes? Are there any topics that you guys absolutely want to make sure that we get to?
Yeah, we have like general 4 topics, and then below those we have subtopics to talk about.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. And as always, feel free to like just have a conversation. You don't have to stick to the questions that we have down right now.
Right. So wait, I kind of left the meeting for a second. So did we introduce ourselves already? All right. So should we start with introductions? Start off this live stream.
Go ahead. We've been live for a while. We're just waiting for people to trickle in, giving some people time to get set. But you can introduce yourselves right now.
All right. So Chloe, how about you start first, and we'll go from like the officer roles.
Hey, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our live stream, and thank you, Elephant in the Room, for having us today. My name is Chloe Ventura. I'm a senior, and I'm the current president of the Filipino American Student Union. Before our disclaimer, we will just go around and have everyone introduce themselves.
Hi guys, thank you for coming, and thank you to Elephant in the Room for hosting this live stream. My name is Amanda K. Signo, and I am the current Vice President of the Filipino American Student Union.
So hi guys, my name is Shana Pundalan, and I'm the current secretary of the Filipino Student Union Club, and I will be the moderator of this live stream too.
What's up, guys? My name is Charles Abigat, and I'm the current treasurer for the Filipino American Student Union.
Hi everyone, my name is Zarina Casino. I am currently the Director of Publicity for the Filipino American Student Union, and I am a senior at DHS.
Hello, my name is Nolani Villanueva, and I'm a member of the Filipino Club, and I am a senior at DHS.
Hello everyone. I'm Sofia Bianca Ponzalan. I'm the guest panelist for this live stream. Thank you so much for Filipino American Student Union for inviting me to this panelist, and I'm really excited to talk about important topics of mental health today.
All right, so I think that we should start now. First of all, oh wait, Chloe, should you say your disclaimer first, right?
Yeah. Okay, so as you already know, we will be talking about the mental health stigma amongst the Filipino community. So thank you again to Elephant in the Room for giving us the opportunity to do so. Just a disclaimer, by no means are we trying to offend or put down the Filipino culture. In fact, all of us panelists here today, we're so proud to be Filipino American. We simply just wanted to voice the opinions of those who are afraid to say it out loud or to their parents or their family. Also, we're not saying that this only happens in the Filipino culture, but we see that this happens in most cultures as well. So our goal here is to educate everyone and instigate a change, not only in the Filipino culture, but in all cultures.
Right. So for the first question for today is, what do you guys think about how the judgment of Filipinos like affect your mental health?
Okay, I can just go. So, growing up in a fully Filipino family, I always learned that competition is one of the most prominent factors, probably not in just my family, but in all Filipino families. And this can take form by grades, social status, how much money you have. And the older generations don't really see this, but it can cause so much pressure on the younger generations.
Yeah, just to kind of elaborate a little bit more on that, in personal experience, and I'm assuming for you guys as well, my parents always wanted me to be either a nurse, a lawyer, accountant, basically anything that will give you a lot of money, just so we can be stable in the future. But that kind of takes away from what we actually want to do in our life. And growing up, I was always told to act, sing, dance, which I did, or not really, but I took up art passions. And them telling me not to pursue that in college kind of discourages me from continuing my hobbies and passions.
And yeah, I think like adding on to that, so we all have this collective versus individualistic ideals when it comes to Western versus for the Filipino values as well. And they actually think that pursuing nursing or pursuing some through simply doctor and engineer is like the sure way for success in the future, because they believe that they should do the collective thing where they have to make sure that their children are educated, that they are actually secure. But then we as Filipino Americans have this individualistic ideals where we have our own passions, like what Serena said, that to pursue the performing arts. And I think that that creates pressure for us, and that kind of silences our individual passions. And I think that's a problem nowadays that we should address.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with my sister Sophia said. So basically, if you're not a doctor or engineer or lawyer, you're basically like a disgrace in the family. And of course, like your family members are gonna like talk bad about you and how like you're a disgrace to the family and how you're not creating a stable job for yourself.
Adding on to it, Shana said, there's like in the family, people would like compare to like, like your cousins on like the achievements that they've done in the past, and which makes like some Filipinos in this generation like insecure about themselves.
Yeah, mostly. Okay, I think I'll butt in here. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning because I'm not a part of the Filipino American Student Union at our school. Hi, I'm Ramir. I'm actually with Elephant in the Room, but I mean, as a another Filipino American, I guess I have some stake in this. I'm probably the most like American out of the Filipino Americans here because like I don't speak the language. I was born and raised here. I haven't been to the Philippines since I was like a toddler, so I'm super disconnected from all that. But there are some constants here, like being born and raised here in America as being a part of the American side of my family. There was this sort of expectation that because I'm American, I have to act like to the American standard. Like my family talks about the people in the Philippines a lot, and they're always saying like, oh, they don't have as much as you, so you should be able to do pretty well in these things. And they really, it's a different kind of pressure. It's not a negative pressure to say don't fail. It's a really different kind of pressure that says you have to be better. And to one of my favorite things is that growing up, I was always told not to be like the bad kids, the bangad kids, which is really strange because I was like, dude, those kids aren't really doing anything bad. They're just doing the best they can with what they have. It's really weird. There's just that whole another layer of expectations to do well.
Yeah. All right. That's actually our next topic, Maria. So I would like to transition to what the Filipino standards are and like the rumors and the chismes and everything. So what are you guys' thoughts about that?
Actually, I have a lot of experience in that. As we all know, like in the typical family party, we see the aunties gossiping about everything. I grew up in like a half Ilocano household, so I kind of understood what they were saying. And then you all know they're gossiping about me and my cousins, and I didn't want to hear any of that. So this is kind of sad because I want to learn languages, I want to learn my culture, but like this is stopping me from learning because of this, culture that we have here at our home.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chloe. So basically, in Filipino parents or titas or titos, aunties, uncles, in their perspective, insults are basically a motivation to get you like motivate yourself. But in the end, it's actually degrading your mental health and it's actually counterproductive.
And to add on to that, like whenever aunts and uncles make judgments regarding your performances, your um your looks your looks, and like compare them to like other people, it also ruins like the relationships within the family. Like for example, like in my family, I was born in the Philippines, like, and I moved here in 2013. And so whenever we go to like family meetings, like I can always like overhear many different families like comparing like my cousins, and I see that, and like it affects like the way I see my cousins, and how it kind of ruins like the relationship that what could have been. And yeah, it's just mentally tolling on you, especially when other family members talk bad about you and behind your back.
Yeah. Adding on to what Charles said. So they love to invalidate your experience and say like, oh, this person had it worse, so you shouldn't be feeling this way. So have you guys had any experiences on that?
Kind of the opposite in a way, but I have cousins who are like high achieving, like they go to get their master's degrees, and my parents are always just like, yeah, you should be like them. You should go to the top schools in the world and achieve great things like them. But not everyone is capable of doing so like so quickly as like them. So that just sets a lot of pressure for me to do well, to provide for my family, to provide for myself, and to just be kind of a great figure in the whole family.
There was a time where I actually felt really bad for my cousin because she was the one that was
Sorry.
people like.
Yes, sorry, Noelani, you cut off there. What were you saying? Sorry.
Sorry. I said that I feel really bad when like towards my cousins when my extended family like say like the great like brags about the great things that I've done, like past achievements. So it not only just makes my cousins feel bad, but it makes me feel like really bad for them even more. Like the old generation should just like motivate you know their own kids instead of like comparing the other.
Kind of touching back on what Charles mentioned about physical appearance. Growing up, they always make comments and snicker about that. So if you guys want to elaborate on this, but I'll just talk about how in elementary school, they always told me not to play in the sun because my skin would get darker. And that's, I don't know, there was something bad about that. But regardless, I still played outside because how could you, live without doing that? It was kind of contradicting in a way.
Yeah, I would definitely say that this seems to be another constant within the Filipino community. Sort of rumors and comparisons. I'll bring up another example, which is that my fa- my mom's side of the family supports this church in the Philippines with money, and one of the things that I see happens a lot with them is they're like trying to compete with each other to see like who can donate the most to the church, as if to say like, oh, I'm supporting them more than you, so I'm a better person than you. And it's really strange because it also leads to a bunch of drama within the family. And every now and then I'll get a snippet of it. And once again, it doesn't really make sense because like within the community, why would you start talking shade behind people's backs because they don't see the church or help the church in the same way that you do? Because at the end of the day, it's all everyone's church. We're all part of the same community, same family. You don't really need that sort of competition between everyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ramir. Like Filipinos are very competitive and egotistic in a way. They always think they're right and they think that everything else is competition. They love to compare, especially like those titas that compare like who has like the most expensive bag out of all of them. And so what are you guys other thoughts and experiences on physical appearance?
Well, in my experience, being like one of the darker um, members of the family, always been told that I've always been told to embrace my skin, but there's like just some cases in my family where they talk about how they wonder how I ended up like being the darker skin person in the family when most of them are somewhat of like a lighter shade of brown. And I just tell them uh that I play outside a lot of the times and I do track in school. But the thing with that is that it's kind of discouraging to me since I want to do like the things that I want to do outside, and like I can't do anything about that. And it's a shame that like Filipinos, especially in the Philippines, like they praise like the fair skin uh the fair skinned people here, when on the other hand, from what I heard here, white Caucasians always try to like get as tan, like as my skin tone. So it's kind of contradicting, since Filipinos in the Philippines always want to be the lighter skinned. Meanwhile, Filipino Americans, or even Caucasians in some cases, wanted to tan as dark as me, and it's confusing.
Another thing that I find contradicting is the fact that once they greet us at a party, they'll say "tumabaka," which translates to "oh, you've gone fat." This is really offensive to most of us, and then and it's contradicting because later on in the party they'll say "eat more, you're skinny." What? So like, there's like some identity crisis here. Also, they blame us on like having bad skin or having a lot of pimples, but when really it's kind of genetic, you know, we can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with, like, they point out your physical flaws and say, oh, you have like this flaw, but then it's kind of contradictory because you got it from them. So why are you attacking me for having this physical flaw?
I've had like some like experiences when I go to like parties, like extended, like for like family reunions and stuff. And then they always say like, "Oh, Lonnie, you've gotten so skinny. You should eat more." And then, you know, like maybe like the next year or like the next month or so, they always say, "Lonnie, you should cut back on the rice. You've gained like a lot of weight. Cut back on the rice and the lumpia." And then like, I don't know, it just like offends me in a way, and like I keep, you know, in my head I always ask like, what do you want me to do more? And then later on you say exercise more. Like, it's really contradicting.
I understand that they're trying to like make conversation with us just like by playfully joking with us, but it seems like their coping mechanism in a way. But parents, if you're listening, build us up, don't discourage us, right? Like the only way to like a open, healthy relationship is, you know, not discouraging us, because that would just like create hostility.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate and how all these insults are normalized and they think it's okay, but in reality, it degrades our mental health and we become less confident with ourselves.
Yeah, growing up, I was told to always pinch my nose. My tita, my aunt, or my dad, literally anyone, they'd come up to me and like just pinch my nose, which was so annoying at the time. And one thing I'd like to add is like, even though they say all these comments, one day Well, personally, one day they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you look really beautiful today." Like, don't pay attention to that, which is truly contradicting. If the other day you told me, "Oh, you got fatter. Oh, you have more acne today," but then the next you're like, "Oh, you don't look bad today." So what's up with that,
Right. So if there's not any more thoughts or experiences you guys would like to share, should we transition to our next topic? You guys have anything to add? No? All right. So for our next topic, do you guys think that there is a mental health stigma again within the Filipino community?
Yes, I heavily believe that there's like a mental health stigma when it comes to like Filipinos, because especially in like in the older generation where they didn't have much access to technology as compared to like today's kids, and so they always like project to like the younger people that they had a much harder time when they were younger. They didn't always have the best education. They didn't have everything we always get. And so it's in a way like it kind of weighs in on like the person because like they're gonna believe that they're forcing their children to believe that mental health, like things like depression, anxiety, or like any like mental health issue doesn't exist because they went through like a much harder time and like they didn't really complain.
Yeah, honestly, the stigma that a lot of the older Filipinos have against mental health is appalling, like especially them thinking that like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, it's all like in your head or you're just wanting to seek attention. And the effects that that mentality has on the younger generations, like I guess our generation primarily, it's honestly very disheartening because it shows us that we're not being listened to and that we're not allowed to seek the help that we feel that we need. And it just like crushes us that our parents or our grandparents are basically invalidating our experiences and our mental health problems.
Yeah, I remember one time I was talking about, I think it was on finals week one time. I was like, I have so many tests, I have so many things to study for, like everything was just piling on top of each other. And at that point, I just couldn't handle it. So I resorted to talking to my family because my aunts were there. Like I just had a lot of family over. And I brought it up and they just said that what was mental health? Like they didn't even know what mental health was or what stress was when living in the Philippines and when they were younger. The environment is obviously completely different, but the fact that they never had to focus on that is truly amazing. My dad pointed out that all he did was really just play basketball with his friends, and that was pretty much it. So the dynamic is truly different.
Adding on to that, like I've been having like, stresses like overall like during for like schoolwork and stuff. And then whenever like my parents say that if you have, someone to talk to, I'm here for you. And then whenever I say like, oh, I'm stressed out with school and stuff, they always say, well, that's how life goes. Or like if I'm like having a bad day, they're like, oh, suck it up, buttercup. Time, it'll pass. And I was like, that's not the words of affection that I wanted. I just wanted someone to like ease up my stress a little. And then they always say, well, if you haven't been going on your phone and actually like going out and be productive, then you wouldn't be that stressed out. And I was like, it's not about my phone. It's mostly about my schoolwork. So yeah, really different. Really different.
Yeah. They hit me with that line. Yan kasi kaka-cellphone mo. Meaning like that's because you're always on your phone, which doesn't really connect to what we're actually doing. We're like busy, so it's not our phone, you know. So they love to invalidate our experiences, which really like degrades our mental health and makes you question yourself if your feelings are valid, which it is, by the way, but they don't think it is.
Yeah, and because they invalidate our experiences and stuff, we're prone to be hiya, or like we're prone to be more shy around our family members. So I personally, and kind of maybe speaking for some of you guys, like I get really shy when I have to ask my dad, like, oh, can I hang out with so and so on this day? Because they're just like, no, you have to stay home, like just be safe. Like even before COVID times, they just want you to be home and like just stay there. But at the same time, my dad tells me, why don't you go outside? So once again, contradicting statements.
Yeah, like a common line in like within the Filipino community is like wala kang bang hiya, meaning like you don't have any. Well, it doesn't really translate to shy, like literal shyness, but more of like, don't you have like any like shame of yourself that you're asking for help? So of course that creates this mental health stigma that we don't need any help because we can solve it ourselves. But in reality, we do. We have to ask for help because like we need that help. And if we don't have that help, it's just gonna like build up on us and we're gonna get worse like mentally.
Yeah, and adding on to that, there are many times that we are all silenced, and to the point that it builds up to hiya, or like this shyness. We are, whenever we have any concerns or something that we have to open up, they're not really there to listen, but then they often dismiss us, which is actually sad, to the point that we are driven to that hiya, even though we are really expressive among our friends and our peers. We are brought into this box of hiya, or the shyness that we have. So we have to note that hiya is not something because of who we are, but because of the fact that they are making us to be that person of hiya or shyness, and we are silenced, which is basically really unfortunate and sad.
Yeah, and also I would also like to brought up like the term of machismo or machismo, however you want to pronounce it. It's basically it basically means that you have to. It's like basically like manliness, and it's basically a term that if you ask for help, it is a sign of weakness.
Yeah, another kind of just short story. My dad, or I would always say, oh, it's too hard, or I can't do it. But he'd always be like, just do it, you know? And then he relates back to his young days and be like, you know, everything I did it alone. I didn't ask my parents for help. I didn't, you know, like go to my teachers for help. I just did it and like moved on with my life. And that's really easy for him to say. And situations are different now and then. But for me personally, it's just not that easy to move on. You know, you have to find ways to cope with whatever you're struggling with or whatever simple tasks you have to do with.
Should we move on to the next topic unless you guys want to add on to anything?
I just wanted to add that it's very disheartening to see how dismissive Filipino parents can be about your problems. So I have personal experience, a lot of personal experience with that. So I remember sophomore year, I took AP Euro, and that was like the hardest class I took that year. And I was really struggling. And it got to a point where I had asked my parents for help, even though they had no knowledge of European history. And my dad was like, kaya mo yan, which means you can do it. And like, I was just like, that did not help at all. Like, I need support. I need empathy. I need probably a hug. And he just kind of like waved me off, you know? And it just like discourages me from talking to my parents when I need help. And just that mentality, like that Filipinos have in general. Like, I believe you guys can also say the same when it's hard for you to ask your parents for help, because it's like they don't give you the time to talk about your problems, or they just lecture you.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you bring it up just slightly, they'll be like, oh, you only care about yourself. You don't care about us.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate on how they don't really know how to like show love that you want to receive, if that makes sense. Like, of course, I kind of blame like the Asian culture that we have, and we're trying to change that culture with this live stream. So this is very good, guys.
Yeah, and I think like adding on to what Shanna said about Asian culture is that Asian culture typically isn't really that expressive when it comes to love and like showing compassion and empathy. You know, we know that through in the Japanese culture, it's really hard to express what you are actually feeling compared to the Western culture that we have today. So I think that, you know, as Filipino Americans who are exposed to the Western culture of being compassionate and open, it opposes their culture of in the Philippines where they are more of this what you call machismo kind of trait. So I think that's what I think.
We'll briefly touch on the Western versus Eastern culture as our last topic. So do you guys have anything more to say about our previous topics?
One more thing is it's like a little bit deeper. I guess the older generation doesn't really understand the people who feel suicidal. They think it's something that's attention seeking, or they're fake, or they're not crazy, but like they don't know what they're saying. So I just find it so sad because they're actually thinking about doing something like suicide, and that's a problem how they just think like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chloe. Like, it's just really sad on how they just like dismiss your mental health as attention seeking and just say, oh, wala lang yan, meaning that's nothing. And of course, that really like affects you like negatively, and you feel more down, and you just question your if your feelings are valid. So yeah, it's just really unfortunate on how that is very normalized and within the Filipino culture. So should we move on to our next topic? All right, so I would like to ask a question of how does the religion affect Filipinos' mental health in general, or Filipino culture?
In my experience, religion drives literally every aspect of my Filipino family's lives, and it leads them to being extremely close-minded, especially when it comes to subjects such as like the LGBT community. So like me, for example, I'm a member of the LGBT community, and that severely clashes with my Roman Catholic Filipino family's ideals. And from personal experience, I was kind of, I guess, driven away from religion just because of the backlash I got for my sexual identity and me being constantly told that, you'll be going to hell or God will not accept you. And it probably caused like a degree of religious trauma. So the fact that Filipinos back up all of their beliefs with religion and don't understand that maybe, my children might not be religious and I should respect that. It just kind of puts a bunch of pressure on the younger generations.
Yeah, adding on to that, I am also Catholic myself. Like my whole family's Catholic. The personal like experience that I got was like, you know, from my sister, where she was like we were born born as Catholics, and then when she was about to like come out, she was like definitely afraid on whether she would come out to the family and to me. So one time she said, Lonnie, if I would you come to my wedding if I married a woman? And I said, of course. Why do you think I wouldn't? And she said, because I think I may be bi. And I said, I accept your, your identity. And then I said, I'll take your time and just like try to tell the parents. I think they'll understand. But that she was like really scared to come out. But surprisingly, my parents said that like they accepted, and she told them like do whatever you want as long as you're happy and you're not harming yourself. And it goes to the same thing with my cousin who also came out to his parents, but he first came up to me because I always like mention on how I support the gay community. And he obviously like he said that he comes out to his friends and his parents because of that religious trauma.
And to add on to what Amanda and Noelani was saying, Filipino parents, especially like the older people, like the grandmas and the grandpas, they're rather like anti-progressive in a way, in that they, like, for example, like they question why like African Americans and people of the LGBTQ community, like they question why they have specific months dedicated to them, and that it's like not, and that it's not everybody, like, and that they were like treated as special. And like what they don't see is that there are people that are being oppressed, unlike many other cultures that are able to enjoy freedom and like live a life free from oppression and racism.
Personally, like myself, I'm not heavily involved in religious affairs or in my religion, but it's kind of what they mentioned earlier. It dictates their life, it dictates everything. And it really just takes away from the emotional aspect that we feel, kind of touching back on the mental health stigma that we briefly talked about. But religion, in my opinion, definitely overpowers your emotional feelings.
Yeah, it's just really sad. Going back to what Serena said, it's just like really unfortunate how when you say, oh, like, mom, dad, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling like these negative emotions, and they just respond back, oh, just pray to God. Like, bro, I need therapy or someone to talk to.
Yeah, everyone brought a lot of good points here. And religion definitely overpowers a lot of people's emotions. But I would say that it goes a little bit further than that for some Filipinos, like the really hardcore ones. For some people, that like religion will straight up guide their emotions. Um, like I said earlier that some people in my family support a church in the Philippines. It's actually not a Catholic church; it's a Protestant church. And the people, those people in my family, some of them are really, really into their church and into their religion. And religion plays such a huge importance in their life that like they tend to credit everything to God. Like there's a family member of mine. If she sneezes, coughs, she burps, if she heck, dude, if her constipation goes away in the morning, she thanks God, right? And she'll thank God in absolutely everything. And while for a lot of people that's fine, it's just weird to see how much they put everything up to God. And yes, that one too. Pray to God is seen as like a fix everything solution. Like when a hurricane or typhoon hits the Philippines, yes, my family donates, but they always push really hard to get everyone to pray. Like they'll get the family together if possible. This year we did a Zoom call. Everyone in the family gets together and does like a group prayer for the people in the Philippines. And they really do believe that if you just pray to God, then things will turn out better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ramir on how like religion is like part of their daily life. I mean, even like in my houses, my house, like there's like a picture of like a Last Supper, and then there's like a Jesus shrine. So yeah, it's like really evident on our Filipino households and how we look up to like Jesus and like religion.
Oh wait,
Right.
sorry, can I just ask everyone, does your family pray before a meal? No? Yeah, no, okay.
I mean, I used to, but yeah, I kind of faded away.
Yeah.
Because I know my family usually does that for our holiday celebrations, and we even do if there's no like church meeting, they'll set up their own version of communion with like skyflakes and some grape juice. Yeah, for people in the audience who don't know, skyflakes is this cracker that that for some reason every Filipino household has a box of.
I'm actually like looking at mine right now. So, do you guys have anything more to add to the topic of religion, or should we move on? All right, yeah, I think so. So we should move on. So, what do you guys think the difference between like the Western versus Eastern culture? Like, what do you guys think of that? Like, is there any similarities, differences? Share your thoughts and experiences on that, please.
I've noticed this thing in the Philippines where if you know how to speak English, then you're considered social. What's the translation of that?
Like rich, basically.
Or rich. And then if you don't know how to speak English, you're gosh, sorry, you're pretty much considered to be like, you know, dumb, uneducated. And then I noticed that same pattern over here. If a Filipino American here doesn't know how to speak Tagalog, they're considered whitewashed or like uncultured. But when really it's not their problem because they're second or third generation, and then they weren't given the opportunity to live in like an environment that speaks Tagalog, so they can't really learn. And then that is just, you know, mentally tolling for them because they're given the stigma that they're, you know, uncultured.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could go.
Okay. When I was younger and still now, I feel pressured whenever I speak to my family members in the Philippines because they obviously speak Tagalog like every day naturally. And every time I just respond back in English and I just feel like belittled, even though they don't say anything, I just feel that pressure, internal pressure from them. But growing up, I always watch Filipino shows or teleseries just to improve or like catch on to words. So that is how I learned. It was never directly from my parents. They never taught me. I was never put in classes. So it was kind of like on my own will, I had to learn and adapt the language.
Adding on to that, I'm from America. I'm American, Filipino American, and then you know, like in my family, most of them speak Tagalog, and I like whenever like they ask me that, oh, you should, you know, learn how to speak my language, which I feel like I feel bad. Like I feel like really insecure like when I talk to my elders because most of them speak Tagalog or Chamorro. I'm half Filipino. Like both of my families and my parents side, they always say, like try like, you know, get into the culture by first speaking your own cultural language, which I've been like trying like many times. Like I've been teaching myself how to speak my two languages, and I try to like learn from my friends. But I also feel insecure when my friends like, you know, speak Tagalog and I don't understand like anything what they're saying.
Okay. So in my experience, Like in my experience, like certain members of my family like adore colonialism. Like they want to be like what the Europeans are. Like they want to be like they want to be the like coming back to like the idea of like your looks and stuff. Like they want to be like they always want to be light skinned, and like they try to be a European, or like try to like assimilate themselves into like becoming one. And like it's disgusting because they don't embrace their own they don't embrace their own culture. Whereas like in Western, with like I noticed that in Western like Filipino Americans, like as what Zarina said, you're sort of like despised if you haven't if you don't know your culture. And it's kind of like hypocritical, since like Filipinos in the Philippines always like want to be what the Americans and Europeans are. Meanwhile, Filipino Americans want to be what the Filipinos are. Like actual like no actually know what their culture is, and reconnect back to that.
Yeah, adding on to what Charles said, so Filipino culture is like heavily influenced by Westernization. They like adhere to like Americans so much to the point that they are forcing us to speak English. So, all right, so I was born in the Philippines and I was raised there as well. So I went to elementary there. So there was this one time that my teacher came up and said, "Okay, so for now on, we're gonna speak English. And for every single Tagalog word you speak, you put 1 peso, meaning like 1 cent, well, like $1 basically, into this jar." So we did that, and we failed doing that to the point that we ended up with like 1,000 pesos, which is like equivalent to $20, just from us speaking Tagalog. So it's really unfortunate on how Filipino culture don't embrace their culture as much as we should be.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to something, which is something that I've like kind of noticed amongst it's not really taught you know, but yeah, my family's mostly women. I have a whole lot of aunts and cousins, and one of the things that kind of weirded me out was even the ones who were born, grew up in, and lived in the Philippines for a lot of their lives. This is kind of a weird thing to notice, but they gush over like white celebrities a lot. For some reason, Tom Cruise comes up a bunch, and I and like that's fine. They're celebrities. But the thing is, like other countries, there's K-pop bands, J-pop bands. They have their own celebrities, their own cultures in there. But amongst my family, they don't. There isn't really like a modern celebrity culture for people for them to cling to. They're always like hopping onto like a bunch of like Western bands. My mom, she doesn't listen to Filipino church music. She listens to Hillsong, who is Western. She actually doesn't listen into the teachings of the pastor in her own church that she supports. She listens to Joel Osteen on the radio, who is Western. And it's weird to see them behave like this, because it's like, guys, do you not see that there are completely just as valid of your attention people on the other side, in the place where you guys came from?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Ramir, especially like the time when like the Black Lives Matter movement was starting. Like, okay, so I have friends on like I follow people like the Filipinos who live there on Twitter and like Facebook and Instagram, basically every social media platform, right? And I see them like retweeting and reposting like Black Lives Matter movement, but they don't post anything about their own country, like with the killings of like President Duterte, which is like the president of the Philippines, they don't really share anything about that. So it's really sad and how ironic it is on how they like repost all these social issues happening here, yet they don't repost their social issues there. It's just really hypocritical.
I want to move. Oh, were you gonna say something, Ramir?
Actually, I was gonna say that there is one like positive thing that I would say that I've noticed, but about the East versus West split. Maybe it's just exclusive to my family, but the food, Eastern and Western food is very strongly appreciated in my family. Like when we cook Asian, we like to cook giant portions, because when we eat those foods, we share, we put them in the middle of the table so that everyone can reach over and grab a piece, and we enjoy it. There is a lot of good food to be had there. You got your favorites, lumpia, lechon, things like that. You know, all our classics. But also they are willing to branch out and appreciate Western culture. We try to cook certain Western dishes in our own way. Like we'll use a Filipino rub to make an American style roast beef. We just tried that and it was fun. So there isn't always like a huge wall between these cultures. It's just that the places where both cultures come together and mix peacefully are kind of few and far between sometimes.
Actually, you're weird. That's gonna be our next topic, which is gonna be food. So, thank you for transitioning for us.
Let's go.
So, what do you guys thoughts and experiences about like our food and food here?
Sure. So I grew up in a really Filipino household. So I would be given Filipino foods for lunchtime, such as like mongo, adobo, stuff like that. And then this was around first or second grade. I would bring it to lunch, and then all of my classmates are there. They're like, "Ew, what's that smell? Who has this stinky lunch?" And then I said, "It's adobo. You want to try some? It's good." And then they said, "No, they would never eat something that like smells like that." So I got really upset. I told my parents, and then we started to, assimilate into American culture. They would give me sandwiches and Lunchables, which is like, not as good. Do you guys agree? Yeah, so I had to assimilate to American culture by doing that. And then as I got older, I realized that was bad because, they're missing out on the food. It's good. I don't know where I was going with that thought. Sorry, you can go.
I definitely agree. People are missing out on Filipino food. Definitely try anything and everything. Truly, I think everything is great. Even though I'm a picky eater myself, Filipino food, great. But I also relate to Chloe's statement that I would get weird comments about my food smelling weird or just looking weird because it looks so different from American food, like hamburgers and stuff like that. And because of that, I started to ask my parents to pack me the different food. So like sandwiches and noodles or just anything that wasn't Filipino food. And that kind of made me sad because I really do enjoy eating my food with rice and eating the classics. And I remember this one time I was at an after-school daycare and I was eating lunch alone. I don't really remember why I was eating it alone, but I was. And one of the teachers came up to me and mentioned that she loved Filipino food and she asked if my mom could bring some in for her next time. And thinking about that as a kindergartner, it's kind of like, okay. But it truly is like acknowledging, and it really helped me like cope, I guess, in a way, because I was the only Filipino in my grade at the time. So I really felt recognized and appreciated that someone knew and someone wanted to try our food.
Yeah, definitely agree on what Serena said. Like, you guys are just sleeping on Filipino food, and lumpia and ube is not the only Filipino food that we have. Please, like, try other stuff. And yeah, like being proud of your food or like enjoying your food is basically like what makes us Filipino. So if anybody takes that away from you, just say that try this. This is very good, and they won't sleep on it anymore, and they'll try more food other than lumpia and ube.
Yes, absolutely. I gotta say, dude, Filipinos are really good, especially at like smaller snack food. If you're ever driving around, find like a Goldilocks or something and buy anything there, and grab some food. And I have there's a story I have to share. Like Serena, I in kindergarten we had one of those like bring a food from your home culture days, and I brought mamon. Mamon is this like bread. It's this little like it's almost like a giant cupcake or one of those muffins you can get at Costco, and it comes in a bunch of different flavors. There's like butter. There's one that you can get stuff with sugar, things like that. And I brought one. Let's go with what we call ube. Ube is a yam, I think. Ube it's this special ingredient that's in a lot of Filipino food, and it's purple. And purple isn't really a color that you see a lot in food. Uh, so when I brought it and I opened up, I took a bite out of the food stripe and like, oh, hey, it's safe to eat. Everyone else was still weirded out because like it's purple. It's just so unusual, and a lot of people, some people actually got completely turned off by that because like, ew. But the kids that were willing to take the leap absolutely loved it, and we ran out of that flavor first, and we actually ran out of the basic flavor last, the butter mamon. So yeah, you know what? I'll say it. I'd say that the food in Filipino culture is probably one of the most positive experiences that you can have with it because all we care about is that you tried it and you probably enjoyed it.
I actually love that you brought up mamon because it reminds me of something that happened in kindergarten. So I remember it was snack time, and I distinctly remember it was just one butter mamon and an apple juice box. So I remember just like eating, and I was like with a few of my friends, and then I remember I guess like the mean boys in my class, they like called over to me and they were like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Mamon, it's a sponge cake. Do you want to try it?" And then for the rest of like the recess period or break, they just started like mispronouncing it like very much intentionally, and it pissed me off. Like they were literally running around the playground saying like "mammon, mammon," and it pissed me off so much. And ironically enough, those are the same people that are like being more open to Filipino food now. Because they're honestly sleeping on Filipino food. Like it's so good, and you're missing out if you haven't tried anything aside from adobo, lumpia, or halo-halo, which a lot of people tend to mispronounce as halo-halo.
To be honest, like how like Asian, like I would say like the Asian Thai food and Filipino food, but they sometimes like misinterpret really in it. Like there's like my personal experience is that I went to like this Filipino place, and then I overheard like these two girls saying that what is this bread filling, and then they like pronounced the name. It's supposed to pronounce ube, but they say ub or ube, and I'm like no. So I politely corrected them on saying it's pronounced ube, and then they asked me what's ube, and I said it's taro, and then they were like, okay, what's taro? It's a purple sweet potato. It's like a very sweet potato. And then she was like, oh, and she was like, yeah, I'm not really a fan of potatoes. So, and I was like, okay. It's like sweet potatoes are supposed to be like, a dessert, right, in the Filipino culture. But however, like they misinterpret like a lot of things in our culture, mostly the food.
Yeah. It's really sad on how like a lot of people, especially people here, like look down on us, especially like in terms of food and other stuff. So I would like to transition to racism and how they look down on us. So what are your guys' personal experiences on racism? Share your thoughts, experiences.
So there's this one experience that I got. That was when I was in middle school. I was in Virginia at the time because my parents were in the military service, and I was in I went to this middle school, and I was like the only Filipino over there, and I would always get like looks and then like negative comments on saying that, oh, did you bring like fried rice to school, or like they would like give me like racist words, like like derogatory like words that hurt me. And then whenever like I walk into the hallway, they always do the the Asian eye thing, and it made me like discouraged about my race and how they misinterpreted me being Chinese. And I always tell them like I'm Filipino, and then they would say, what kind of like ethnicity is that? And then I would have to like lecture them on what Filipinos are. And there was this one time when like when COVID was starting to happen, there's this one kid when I was at the park, and then he would say that, oh, go back to China, you're the one that like caused the COVID. He literally thought I was Chinese, but I told him that I'm not Chinese, and I just walked away, which it really hurts me. Those kind of memories, it one time like discouraged of my identity and not myself.
Yeah, it's just really unfortunate in how other people like guess our ethnicities. So from my personal experience, people are like, "Oh, let me guess what kind of race or ethnicity you are," and they always like guess like Chinese, Korean, Japanese first. Like I have like a lighter skin tone than the average Filipino, so that's like Filipino is the least thing that they would like guess.
Oh, and in my experience, like when I first moved here, they sort of like the school administration sort of like underestimated my academic abilities in terms of like how fluent I am in English. And so how it went was when I first moved here and started school, I got put into like a special class dedicated to like those who have like language deficiencies or something like that. And so for 2 weeks they tested me on like how fluent I was in English. Like they tested me on pronunciation, spelling, um, and all those kinds. And when I passed most of like their questions, they were like surprised. They were surprised on how well I performed because they didn't really expect that from from someone who immigrated to the United States and just assume that like I'm like less educated compared to the kids here.
Yeah, adding on to what Charles said, I first moved here in 6th grade, and like because of like westernization, and I have like an English subject before in my Philippines. So for me, so we had this spelling bee, right, for like the classroom first, and then I got like the top score, so and which many people were surprised on how educated I am in English. So of course they doubted that I'm gonna win the school spelling bee, but actually I did. So that really surprised many people on how they just like it's just really sad on how they underestimated me and just say like, oh, you can't spell because you're an immigrant, you don't know how to speak English. But it actually, like, I do and act like better than you. Like I can spell better than you. Like
I guess like adding on to that, I think it's also because of the fact that, you know, with Charles and Shauna and me just immigrating to the United States like just a few years ago, it's also because of the fact that Filipinos are really good English speakers. Like when you're in the Philippines, you can just communicate with anybody, even though they have that accent that's really thick, you can actually really understand what they're saying and they can speak English. And I think that's also a positive thing that colonialism did for the Filipinos, is that there's proficiency in English. But the thing is, it took away their proficiency somehow in Tagalog for some people. And that created this kind of, I think I'm going to bounce, I'm going to go back to the topic that you were talking a while ago, where once you speak English, you have this higher social status. And I think that is also creating this pressure, and that, you know, you are uncomfortable with that. And I think that no matter, it doesn't really, and then I think that language should be something that indicates your social status and how, and especially on how intelligent you are and how smart you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I know if we're gonna talk about like the effects of colonialism, I feel like a lot of some of the racism present in like Filipino culture is probably a carryover from that time. Like I know when my dad tells me stuff about how like when he was still in the Philippines, he still refers to certain people as mestizos, which is a little bit confusing because the way that I know that term is from my history classes, but the way that he knows that term is apparently as an actual way to refer to someone nowadays. And also, another related thing is that on older birth certificates, like we're trying to help some family immigrate over, and we have to like look at all the papers and stuff. On the old birth certificates, there was a section under there called for race in the Philippines, and the races they I have a family member whose race is just listed as brown, and things like and, little details like that. They're pretty small and pretty easy to miss, but those are little details that kind of indicate this wider problem where racism might not necessarily be loud and proud, as it is in like as it is in history books. It's a lot more subtle, but it's probably still there. Actually, no, scratch that. Definitely still there, and its effects are absolutely still just permeating through the population.
yeah, I definitely agree with Jameer. Like not a lot of people know about like that the Spanish colonized us and also the American colonized us afterwards. So that really like affects our culture on westernization and like how it affects like our relationships with Americans as well.
Kind of briefly touching back on the racism aspect and along with physical appearance, because they believe that lighter skin is deemed to be more beautiful than darker skin, that's kind of a microaggression towards other races and cultures. And even though they don't think it is, I think it is. So that should be stopped.
All right, so should we move on to our next topic? Or do you guys have anything more to say about racism in general? All right, so we should move on to our next topic on terms of how Filipino parents are strict and like their discipline, their questionable discipline ways on how they approach things. So what are guys' thoughts on that or experiences?
When I was growing up, I would be disciplined by being palo, or in the translation for that is basically spanking. And I don't know, like looking back, like especially when I was younger, I always thought, oh, maybe like, you know, all families experience this and they would get, you know, spanked too. But then as I got older, specifically when I entered high school, I realized that it wasn't normal in American culture. So it just makes me think of how like the lasting effects being spanked, being disciplined in that way had on me. Like for one, it definitely caused a huge strain on my relationship with my dad. And that's, yeah, pretty much it. The effects are just wow, especially after I realized it wasn't normal.
Yeah, adding on to that, I've also experienced that kind of experience, but not from like my parents, but mostly from my great grandmother. I was raised like I was raised half of my life like by her because my mom was, you know, in the military at the time. But like she taught me like a lot of discipline just by like, you know, spanking with whatever she had. And it just like led me to, you know, like it gave me like a lesson when I was younger to, you know, like obey or like respect the elderly. And however, like with like my age, it still like it still has like this traumatic you know, like, you know, it's really traumatic for me whenever I'm so older now, but she doesn't do it anymore. But yet, it teaches me a lot on how to, you know, obey the elders.
Along with discipline, I think it's hard for us to kind of form relationships or like a social life in general, in my experience. When I was younger, they wouldn't really allow me to go out a lot or like hang out with people because one, they think it's not safe in general. But because of that, because my freedom to socialize with others was restricted, I found it hard to talk with other people. So like currently I'm not freaking out, but you know, it's hard for me to speak in front of people. And yeah, as an introvert, or that really led to my introvertness.
Yeah, and that's on becoming an introvert, like me and Zarina and other people out there. Yeah, so there's definitely so there's definitely like a difference between like the Western versus Eastern culture of like parenting. So like recently I saw this meme that says like, "Mom, I'm going out," and then the Philippine parents are like, "Okay, see you," and then while like the Philippine parents are like, "Okay, aalis ka? Tatapos ka na ba sa maglinis ng bahay?" And the question goes on and on. So in translation, it means like, "Oh, you're leaving? Are you like done with your chores? Did you like, are you done with studying?" So there's like a lot of questions that like just like mentally draining us. And of course, like their restriction on like our freedom leads to us like being like feeling left out and alone.
I just wanted to add quickly that in my experience, I would always have to ask if I could go out like 5 to 7 business days before the event or hangout actually happened.
I think this pressure that they put on us, yeah, it's definitely led to some of us being an introvert. But you know, they're probably just looking out for us. They're worried about what's gonna happen, and that pressure, that yelling from that meme that you said, Shana, that just, you know, creates some hostility in there. And then if we're gonna make mistakes, we'd rather learn from like our parents rather than just them yelling at us.
Yeah, like I said, their methods on like making us discipline are very questionable, because it degrades our mental health, and it's very counterproductive.
Yeah, it's kind of traumatic in a way, and parents or our parents really don't have a way with words, or they don't know how to effectively communicate with that. So I feel like that's definitely one thing that Filipino parents and other parents in other cultures must learn how to do, is to communicate effectively with their child on any like problems or issues that they have, rather than disciplining them with like physical action.
Yeah, so transitioning to our topic.
Wait, can I
It,
say one last thing?
yeah, you can go over there.
Okay.
All right.
One last thing though that I like to add is that things are definitely changing for the better. I would feel, because like a parent, the way that my parents have told me their stories, like they grew up under very similar conditions to everyone. Like they were like the spanking, they would get hit with what we call a tabo. The tabo is like this bucket that we use for bathing. We put water in it and use it to help wash yourself. Yeah, they grew up under conditions like that where their privacy was violated, or they were like disciplined physically instead of with words. But the other half of that story that they told me is that when they came over here, they decided they would change things. So like in my house, our tavo is just a tool. It's never been a weapon. They have our slippers. Always stand on the feet. And I I like grew up in this environment where I felt pretty comfortable to talk to my family and my parents about things. Like discipline is more or less supposed to be like its own. Discipline is supposed to come naturally from lessons that are shown to you, not beat into your head, literally. And obviously, everyone in here knows that things like that are wrong, just like my parents did. So I think that everyone here, if they are able to take the lessons from if they're able to take the parents that their parents are teaching them without meaning to, which is that discipline has to come naturally, you guys can take that like into the future, then things will probably definitely change within this community.
Yeah, so for our parents watching here, please don't use fear as our motivator. Use like, I don't know, like some incentive or reward as our motivator instead. Right. So we should transition to how our parents or other people interfere with our like social relationships, such as like your girlfriend, boyfriend, friends. Like, what are you guys' experiences and thoughts on that?
For me, growing up and even now, I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend, as my parents say it, because my parents have this belief that, oh, if I get with like a boy during like high school or even during college, my life is gonna be ruined. Like using those exact words. And it's just like appalling that my parents have to like, exaggerate the potential consequences I might have about getting into a relationship, like having a boyfriend. I mean, they don't have to worry about it, but still.
I think what's crazy is that they told us not to get a boyfriend until after college, or until college when we were like in elementary school, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and it's like also really funny in how they say, oh, if you're gonna have a boyfriend, make sure it's a doctor or he's rich, okay? Like, bro, I just wanna like marry for love, Like, I'm not like a gold digger.
And in addition to that, about the boyfriend kind of thing, is that the ultimate question that people ask when you're like in a family gathering or Christmas is, "My boyfriend ka na ba?" Or like it's just like the $1 million question, like, do you have a boyfriend? And then when I'm going to say like, no, I'm just gonna study, I'm like 20 years old now. And then when I was like 15 or like your guys' age, it's just like, oh, it's okay, you study first and all that. So that was the response. Now I'm 20. So I don't have a boyfriend yet. But then they're just trying to say, when are you going to have one? So it changes. It shifts from like 15, you're like, oh, not yet. And then 20, now they're like, where is it? or you should get married right now. And I'm just like, what do you guys want? So it's like really contradictory, and it changes per age. So as like a Filipina, you know, and who is now 20, creates this pressure, or should I get one already because people are like telling me to. So that's that connected to mental health, where it creates this pressure for like Filipinas who is 20 and above, who are focusing on careers, focusing on college like me, who are pressured on whether or not they should, you know, have a boyfriend so that your titas could shut up and your titos could shut up during your family gatherings. So that's something that we have to address to, that, you know, as Filipinas, it is our choice whether or not we want to enter in a relationship, and we don't really have to. It's not a requirement that you should have.
Yeah. In my family, something that I noticed when my cousins, my cousins are, yeah, they're all girls, at least my immediate family, and when they came to a family gathering with a boyfriend, the after they would leave, the family would immediately start talking about them, being like, oh, that guy doesn't seem like a good dude, like he doesn't seem like a good fit for her. And there's this like there's a super hyper focus on whoever they're dating and make sure that they're the right one. But then me, who is a guy, all the uncles of my family, they'll like jump into like, hey, you got a girlfriend yet? Like, oh, dang, man. It's like, dang, man, has your mother been making you look good so you can get a girlfriend yet? And my 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 dad, he does it jokingly. He doesn't really expect me to have a girlfriend. I don't think so. Yeah, but he one of the things that he tells me is that he tells me a story about how in high school and in college he was a player, because he talks about like having multiple girlfriends at the same time, things like that. Probably all just stories, but there is this very much boys' club atmosphere amongst the men of my family. Well, they'll hound, all my uncles will hound me like, hey man, one of these days you gotta bring a girl over to the holiday parties. Dude, sometimes I just don't. Not all the time, dude. I just think about having a girlfriend. I'm like, nah, I'll just focus on school. I don't want to get distracted. They always expect you to bring someone.
Yeah, the double standards there are definitely double standards, because my dad tells my brother, who is in middle school, so are you interested in girls? Like, do you have a girlfriend yet? And I'm just like, when I was in middle school, you guys were telling me no boyfriend, you can't even like hang out with boys or stuff like that. And that is just so annoying.
We have a common phrase in the Philippines that means aral muna bago lande, meaning study first before you flirt with somebody else or engage in a relationship. So I don't know about you guys, but do your parents have outdated beliefs on relationships today?
Yes, my parents believe that relationships now still have like the ligaw or courting stage, which is extremely outdated. I mean, the closest equivalent for that now is, I guess, the talking stage. But when my parents were young, my dad would like court my mom by like surprise visits at her house, flowers every day. And like my dad thinks that I'm trying to pursue that now, even though I've told him that courting is non-existent in this, like considering how this generation is. It's not, we're not in like the 80s anymore. We're not in the 80s, we're not in the 90s anymore. Like their beliefs on love and relationships are honestly really, really outdated.
Yeah, like when our parents tell about like their beliefs on us, of course it like makes us stuck and they question ourselves if we're doing the right thing. So of course you don't know what to do about it. So we're just like basically stuck, and then you're gonna pile up all these problems about like your love life, and you can't really ask them for like advice because of their outdated beliefs. So that leads to like strange relationships with parents. All right, so should we move on to our next topic? If you guys don't have any more anything to say. All right, so for my Filipino immigrants out there, what are your experiences and how did it affect your mental health?
So it's the same time as my sister, I immigrated from Philippines, and I went here when I was in high school, so which is my sophomore year of high school. I was 15 years old. And at first, it was really hard adjusting. You know, my mental health wasn't really that good adjusting because they promised me that it was the American dream. That's what most Filipinos actually know, that, oh, when you go to America, you're going to be rich. When you go to America, it's paradise, it's wealth, it's everything handed on a silver platter. But I think that doesn't really seem that way. When I came here into America, I was just like, where is that? Where is that paradise? Where is this American dream that you're talking about? Because, you know, as adjusting into the new culture, there were many culture shocks to the point that, you know, I had to deal with so much pressure adjusting on whether or not I'm going to am I going to be Filipino or am I going to be American? Will I fit in? Or will I stay to my Filipino roots? So it's like, so in my Filipino literature class, we're discussing these two, and then we call it a state of liminality. A state of liminality is that you're on the in-between and you are lost. And I think that it's something that people don't address. People are saying that, oh, when you go to America, your life is going to be better. But, you know, as a Filipino, and I think that, you know, as an immigrant, there's so many adjustments that has to be made. And there's so many struggles before I actually became comfortable here, before I actually became really mentally healthy or not really missing or having this homesickness that I have. So I think that it's important to note that it takes time for an immigrant to adjust to the United States, and it doesn't mean, and it's not easy, and it takes really a lot of effort and support from the peers.
Pop off, sis. All right. Yeah, so me and my sister faced kind of the same experience. So before, like, I was stuck between two worlds, which is like the Filipino world and the American world. So I was really stuck on that. But over time, I thought, why not I just create my own world, like somewhere in between? So yeah, like not a lot of people know, especially like back home, that how much we struggle as like immigrants here.
Yeah, to add on to what Shauna and Sophia said, in my experience, like when I came back to the Philippines last year, in December, like the people and family members that I knew, like when I was little, like their whole demeanor changed when I came back, saying like I've changed. Like they had a lot of expectations put on me now, like that I didn't know, knowing that I've been living in America. They said that they put expectations like, why isn't my skin lighter? Why haven't I gotten like why have I gotten fatter? and and like they think that you're made of money once you make it here. Like going back to what Sophia said, that the America is like the land of the free and like land of opportunity, meaning that and like to them in the like my relatives living in the Philippines, they interpreted that as like they interpreted like America as like the place where you make it rich and where you live like the good life. But what they don't realize is that it's also like living here is also a struggle. It's not gonna be easier compared to living in the Philippines. Well, and like but like well yes, like there's like better things like transportation, the medicals, like the education is better here. It's still the same. It's still the same thing, and that it's not really like that much better compared to how they were. And in the end, you'll still struggle, regardless if you're living in like a first world country or not.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know about you guys, but like the Filipino Americans here, like told me that when they go back to the Philippines, they don't speak English, or they just like don't talk at all, because like the Filipinos, they're gonna like assume that you're from like America, meaning that you're rich. So it's like really unfortunate on how like the Filipinos back home like view us as like more superior because we're living in America, but in reality we're actually like struggling more than like they know. So do you guys have any more insights on this topic? No? All right, so, all right, go Charles.
And going off on a tangent here and like, going back to like the previous topic of like relationships and all that. So what I experienced like when I came back was like my relatives back in the Philippines were pestering me about like if I've gotten with like a Caucasian girl yet or something like that, and I was just like, oh, that's kind of screwed up, you know? It's like, why do I have to get with like a Caucasian person to satisfy their ideals? It's like that. I was like, that's just messed up.
So for like, I forgot like something to say earlier. So anyways, yeah, so we just also want to address the fact that also Asians could also be racist. I don't know about you guys. You guys have any experiences on that or stories? No? All right. So for me, because of westernization and colonization, they also view African Americans as inferior. So for me, during my homecoming, like, so of course, like, family members love to like meddle with my like social life and love life and everything. So in homecoming, some like an African American asked me out, and then like all my family was like, "Oh my gosh, he's black. Oh, like he's bad," and all stuff like that. So yeah, I just want to address the fact that not like Caucasians are not the only ones who are racist, but Asians as well. And we're trying to make that change, especially like from like this year. Do you guys have any more like topics or thoughts, experiences, insights you guys missed or forgot? Maybe like after this live stream, you're gonna remember. All right, so we should proceed with our closing.
Yeah, so we would like to thank Elephant in the Room for giving us this opportunity to talk about our mental health struggles and the stigma in the Filipino community. We hope all the viewers watching caught a glimpse of how mental health is looked upon, and we just wanted to bring awareness to what the Filipino youth is facing in their lives daily and for so on and so forth. So yeah, we are the Filipino American Student Union. We are agents of change, and we are hoping to ignite the flame of hope towards the betterment of mental health for Filipinos and Filipino Americans as a whole.
As your panelists for tonight or for today, we want to create change in our community, especially amongst the older generation, to better understand how their words and ideologies affect us. We want families to have an open relationship with honest communication, not hostility. We want to encourage Filipinos to be open-minded, to have a voice. And with this live streams, we hope to amplify their voices and to be the voice of the voiceless. Change starts with you. Change starts within us. And again, thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Elephant in the Room as well.
Thank you guys. That was such a beautiful ending to what was a beautiful live stream. There were so many interesting points throughout this, and I, for one, learned so much listening to you guys. And I feel like even I'm not Filipino, but like I could relate to so many of the things that was brought up in this discussion, which is really cool. Before we close off, I know you guys have an opportunity to support you guys coming up with a fundraiser. If you want to plug that really quickly, we can totally do that.
Yes, thanks again for watching. If you'd like to support us even more, we have a fundraiser with Bunso Breads. It's a Filipino bakery at downtown Pleasanton. It's from 11 to 6 p.m. The digital flyer is on our Instagram at DHS Filipinos for more instructions. Thank you.
Awesome. And then thank you guys for your continued support for Elephant in the Room. Upcoming things we have, our talk show is still in the works, so look out for that. And to keep supporting us, just follow us on Instagram at EITR Project. If you are an organization that's interested in hosting a live stream collaboration event like this one, definitely reach out. And thank you to Filipino American Student Union for hosting this event with us. It was really an amazing experience.
Yes, I would also like to thank for people who have been watching live streams for a while. We have the beginning and end cards drawn by Isha Nayak. She's an amazing friend of mine, and I'm gonna put her handle in the chat right now for Instagram. Also, for our speakers, for our speakers and our panelists, we'd like to get a final goodbye photo, or yeah, just a group photo of everyone staring at looking at the camera. Um, just to have like a little keepsake for everything. __cross. There we go. There's Isha Nayak's handle. And I think we can do our group photo now. So I guess I'll take it. Everybody, 5-second delay. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. And other than that, that's it.
Thank you. Romeo, you can end this stream.
Great job, guys. We did very well.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda, so
Thank
much.